Hi, and welcome to the OT is In, the podcast where we merge the worlds of education and occupational therapy to empower families like yours. I'm Sarah Collins, your host, an occupational therapist and a homeschooling parent. I've experienced occupational therapy by supporting families for over 15 years, but also through seeking out support of my own children, so I'm right here in the trenches with you. Though there is not one way to educate your child, there is a lot to consider when individualizing an education. And the goal of this podcast is to explain some of the why behind what an occupational therapist is thinking so you can apply it to your own family. Especially with my three favorite topics: executive functioning, handwriting, and sensory processing. Each episode will be packed with practical tips, expert interviews, and real-life stories aimed at helping you to create a supportive learning environment for your child. So, grab your headphones and get ready to dive in of the collision of education and occupational therapy. I'm Sarah Collins from Homeschool OT, and I'm thrilled to have you with me on this journey of discovery. Hey, and welcome to this week's episode of the OT is In podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Collins, and today I am thrilled to introduce you to Katie Cooper. She's a seasoned occupational therapist turned health coach. She shares her journey from burnout to wellness and how that fueled her passion for supporting other moms. So drawing from nearly 2 decades of OT experience and her own story of overcoming stress and overwhelm during the pandemic, Katie opens up about practical strategies for calming the nervous system, strategies that are especially useful for homeschool families and any parent juggling these busy roles. So from quick restorative rituals to the science behind movement and breathing, and even the power of the 20-second hug. Yes, for teenagers too. This conversation is going to answer your question, why our modern life leaves us on constant high alert and what to do about it. So whether you're a homeschooler, a busy mom, or just looking for real-world tips to manage the pressures of daily life, this episode is packed with relatable stories and actionable advice. Grab your coffee and get comfortable and join us for this lively, insightful chat that promises to leave you feeling a little bit more balanced and a lot more empowered. Hey, and welcome back to the OT is In podcast. My name is Sarah Collins, and I have with me today Katie Cooper. And Katie and I actually met recently at the American Occupational Therapy Association conference. And as we were sitting next to each other, we were talking about what she does, and I just know it will benefit homeschool families for sure, especially the parent and child dynamic and everything that Katie works on. So I said, please come and chat with us. So Katie, this was a little bit of an introduction to you, but actually tell us who you are, what you do, and how you got to this point.
Thank you so much for having me. I am an occupational therapist by background. I've been practicing for almost 17 years in various different settings with lots of different ages and different types of people. And about 5 years ago, during that lovely pandemic we all lived through, I hit a wall and I got super burnt out, where I just felt like I was no longer functioning the way I wanted to. I had no energy. I had super brain fog. I felt like I couldn't really be present with any of my roles as a mom, as a clinician, as a leader. And so I realized I needed to make some changes to manage the stress that I was under and take care of myself. And during that time, I decided to enroll in health coaching school. It had been something I had experienced after my first daughter was born, when I felt like I was not myself anymore as a new mom. I couldn't really wrap my head around this new role that I had in my life. And I worked with a health coach to get myself back in order. And it was like a transformational experience for me. So when I hit my burnout phase, I was like, you know what? I want to coach myself and stay accountable to the things that I need to do to take care of myself. And through that journey, realize that I want to use that in my practice to help other moms manage the overwhelm, reduce stress, and find some balance, because it's hard being a mom.
It is hard being a mom. Absolutely. Absolutely. What a story. Way to completely take what is happening. And I love the way that you talk about roles because so many times I hear people speak versus identity. This is who I am. And then when something happens to change like that role, a person doesn't know who they are anymore. When in reality, it's a role change. It's not an identity, but a change in your role. So I love the way that you're talking and focusing on that.
Yeah, thank you. I think so often when we hit a really challenging part in our lives, the first place we turn to is, I just have to give it up. I can't do this anymore. And I think as OTs and as a coach, we know we can pivot, we can
Mhm.
shift, and we can make changes in our lives so that we can still do these things that we enjoy. We don't have to just give up on all these dreams and we put so
Mhm.
much work and effort into.
Yeah, I love that. So now, as homeschoolers, which again, this is not an identity, but a role. So, as a person who is homeschooling my children, I'm around them all the time. And most of us, I would say, are. So, before we talk about calming our nervous systems the way that you would through as a health coach, why do you think our nervous systems are activated so frequently in our modern lives?
Oh, this is something I love to talk about because I think we get desensitized to the stress that our bodies are
Yeah.
under on a daily basis. And the thing that happens is like our brain is so good at identifying the stressors around us.
Mhm.
It could be something super serious like a car accident you're trying to avoid, or it could be an email that's stressful. Our brain doesn't know the difference. Well, in both situations, it's going to activate our fight or flight response, that sympathetic nervous system. And what happens in our modern world is we're activating that constantly throughout our
Constantly.
day. So you hear mom 5,000 times, and every time you're like, and it just builds and builds. And we never get a chance to turn off that stress response
Mhm.
and allow our system to calm down. And I think this is like something that, evolutionary speaking, when we needed fight or flight back then, it was the lion that came into the village to eat us.
Right.
Now there's a lion everywhere we turn because we are connected to everything all day long, and it's really hard to shut it out.
Yeah, which is so interesting because by many studies, right, if you're thinking about safety, like we are safer now than we've ever been as far as we've got seatbelts, we've got helmets, we've got every type of thing all the time. We have warnings on every single thing that we eat, but our brains and our bodies aren't necessarily reflecting this like safe world that we are living in.
Exactly. And I think when we're like super connected to what's going on in the
Mhm.
world, the things that are happening thousands of miles away from
Right.
us still turn on that stress response to us. So it's just so easy to get trapped in that cycle.
Yeah. Goodness. Okay, let's also talk a little bit about busyness as a whole, right? Is it just the information overload, or is this activity that you think keeps us more heightened in a heightened state?
I think part of it is just our society has told us that busy is good, busy is
Mm-hmm.
productive. And we want to give our kids all these experiences and give them opportunities and make them the best version
Hmm.
of themselves. And that can really cause that busyness to build
Right.
because we want to get in this activity, we have this sport, we have this opportunity, this travel, in addition to just being aware of all the other things going on in your life and all the other chores that need to get done and bills that have to get paid. And it just builds over time, and it feels like, well, I'm doing the right thing for my child. I'm giving them these opportunities, I'm giving them these experiences, I want to do that, but we're not giving ourselves that chance to rest and
Right.
recover from the busyness, the stress of a typical day.
I'm laughing to myself because I had a discussion with my parents not too long ago about the all these things that I want to do with my kids and I want to it's getting warmer outside. We want to go paddleboard and some rituals and stuff that we have for the end of the school year. And I was talking to my parents and I was like, I don't remember doing all of these things with you. And I still feel like I had a fantastic childhood. And my dad was like, yeah, that's because we had to go to the bank on Saturday. Like it wasn't like we had this time. So there are so many things that we have gotten rid of as a society. Like we're not having to run as many quote unquote errands,
Right.
but we're filling that time with what we think is fantastic experiences, but it's not like we're resting in that time that we're replacing it with more busyness.
Exactly. And I think the other thing is it's really hard to say no when it's
Mm,
for your child, for your family. So I want to say yes and give them all these opportunities. But when I do that, I take away that opportunity for me to take care of myself or
mhm.
to give the family time to rest and recover. And I think finding that balance is important so that we can also model that for our children so
Right.
that they know how to manage the demands that life can throw at us and when to say no, when is that appropriate, when is that okay?
I love that. I love that. You keep mentioning rest, and I want to make sure listeners that I will make sure to link in the show notes. I did just have another episode on the 7 different types of rest, which was
Mhm.
absolutely fantastic. And I learned so much from that. So I make sure that's linked in here too. But I want to hear a little bit more from you, Katie, as far as like, how do you feel like we can calm our nervous systems on a daily basis? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I think this ties into kind of the busyness too, right? Sometimes it feels like I don't have enough time in the day to calm my nervous system, to
Right.
rest. And what I try and teach my clients and the people I work with is there are ways to calm your nervous system that take a minute or less. And if we do those a couple times a day or a few minutes before we go to bed, it makes a huge impact over time. And it turns that stress response off consistently so we don't get that buildup of when we feel like we're just going to bubble and burst at some point, like we just can't take it anymore. So this looks like a couple different things. So there are lots of ways to turn off the stress response. The favorite of mine is movement. Movement is very effective for allowing our body to turn on that parasympathetic nervous system, turn off fight or flight. And what I tell people about movement is you don't want to pick movement that's going to add stress to the body when we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
stress. So, like high intensity interval training, great for our fitness, not great for turning off the stress response. That adds stress to the body. I also like to tell people like if you hate going to the gym and that adds stress, that's not a way to turn off your stress
Right.
response. But it's simple as taking a walk for a couple minutes or stretching or doing some chair yoga or dancing. One of my favorite ways is to turn on one of my kids' favorite songs and we dance in the kitchen while we're making dinner or in the morning when we're cleaning up breakfast. You can incorporate it into something you're already
Yeah.
doing and it doesn't add time into your schedule.
We have a coffee table in my living room that's like really sturdy. And so I have so many pictures of my kids and I, like, when we were little, and my husband just looking in the room, like, what are you guys doing? Like, Dad, I got whisks and rolling pins and we're rolling it all out. Oh my gosh.
That's
I haven't
amazing.
thought
And
about
like
that in so long.
and what a great memory too. My kids, they love having those dance parties.
Yeah.
They don't really want to share that with anybody else. And it's like a special family time that we
Mhm.
have. And as my kids get older, and my oldest is 9, she's getting closer and closer to that preteen stage,
Yeah.
just trying to soak it all in now and make sure that we have these like core memories.
Right. Yeah. I will
But
tell you,
another,
my
yeah.
kids they're both going to the homeschool prom, which my daughter went to another prom as well, but they're going to the homeschool prom, which we just can't stop laughing about because I know it's going to be fantastic. But just when you say the name, we're like, what? But, and any of you who have not listened to the homeschool anthem, I'm going to make sure that is linked in the show notes too, because it is hysterical. But anyway, they both, as we were talking about it, they have a lot of friends who are feeling like, no, I'm not going. I don't want to dance with people that I don't even know. And I'm like, you guys, you may or may not see these people ever again because it's not like when you go to school and you see kids every single day. And so there's pros and cons to that, right? You're not as comfortable, but at the same time, who cares? Go and dance. Like they're not going to know. Pretend like you're standing in our living room and let's think about that stress response and what you're doing to your body there. Are you going to be calmer and more fun as you're there? Or is that going to provide, if you hate it, like you were saying with the
Right.
gym, that much is going to give you this huge stress response? All right, so fine, but let's just evaluate in that way. Hey listeners, we're going to take a quick break from our chat, but I have something super special to share with you. If you've been loving the stories and strategies that we talk about each week, you're going to want to check out our brand new book, co-authored by me and Jackie Adrian, called A Chameleon Tale, A Colorful Sensory Story. It's the perfect resource for anyone navigating the beautiful and sometimes challenging world of sensory needs and neurodiversity with their kiddos. Our book follows Sally and Seth, two adorable chameleons on their journey to the Chameleon Cafe, highlighting how every family member's sensory experience can be unique. Not only is it gorgeously illustrated by Jackie, seriously, these chameleons are so cute. But it's also designed as a meaningful conversation tool that you can use with your child to help them recognize and express what's going on inside their bodies. Imagine having a story that you can read together where your child can say, "Hey, I feel like Seth today. I need a," and then list one of the compensation strategies that Seth uses. And for parents, it's a way to give your children a language to talk about their feelings and their bodies. Plus, you'll find ideas for regulation strategies to try together. The book is available for order right now. Yes, right now. You can find A Chameleon Tale on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can request it at your favorite local bookstore or find it and its free book guide at homeschoolot.com/a-chameleon-tale. So support two mama authors, grow your family's emotional toolbox, and get a beautiful keepsake for your bookshelf. Order today and review it, and let's keep changing lives, one story at a time. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah, so some other ways that we can turn off or manage the stress of the day that are quick and easy is breathing. So breathing is another amazing way. And I think a lot of people know this, but we don't always stop and take time to do it. So there are tons of different ways to breathe that calm our nervous system. One of my favorites is called 4-7-8 breathing. So you breathe in through your nose for a count of 4, and then you hold for a count of 7, and then breathe out your mouth for a count of 8. And you only have to do that 4 rounds to get the effects of it. This is great right before you go to sleep to like really calm everything down and ease yourself into sleep. Kids can do this too. I love these techniques because they're for any age, and you can incorporate them with the family. Maybe even like after dinner, everybody just does a minute or two of some deep breathing, or right before bed. It's a great way to like wrap up for the day and start to calm down and settle from the busyness of the day.
We used to build that into getting out of the car when we're going somewhere new. As we would, at that point, we had a minivan. So as I would slide open the minivan door and we would all stop right at the edge and do, our deep breaths before we went in. I also would always keep a thing of bubbles in my purse and a straw because I had one kiddo who would get very riled up. We've talked about him over and over on this podcast, but deep breathing would always help to calm him so that he could participate in that environment or whatever environment. Sometimes we could use the bubbles there. Sometimes it would be at the edge of the car, and that would get him started before we could head into where we were going.
Oh, that is amazing. And I think as OTs, like we totally understand like the bubbles and the straw and how regulating that can be. And it's good for everybody, regardless of like your like sensory system. Like it is calming for everyone, which is amazing.
Have you seen those calming strips? Or maybe something else. Yeah, I will make sure those are linked in the show notes as well. I have not used them, but I have a great OT friend of mine who opened her computer one day and she had the sticker on her laptop. And I was like, oh, look at that. She just rubs her finger from side to side across to help
Mhm.
to give her the visual. And she is an OT.
Yeah.
Yes, we all
They
need these visuals.
Exactly. They have ones that are in the shape of a box for box breathing, which is
Oh,
another great
amazing.
technique. So you can it reminds you to do your breathing and can also have that tactile stimulation while you do your box breathing, which I think is really helpful.
Yeah. So, why do you think that because of in our modern lives that we have to be so intentional with this type of thing? I don't feel like that this has been a historical, no one was stopping baling hay to come and go inside and breathe. This seems like such a new phenomenon that we have to really be focused on.
I think because we are so connected digitally now, like even if I go to look at my phone, I can get so sucked in into like just scrolling on social media and checking the news 15 times
Mhm.
a day. Whereas 30 years ago, you had to open a newspaper and you got your
Right.
news once a day.
Yeah.
And I think just being like so connected, it's just made it much harder to regulate our systems. But I would say this has probably always been a problem. And
Yeah.
if we look at like chronic disease, especially in our older adults, a lot of the diseases can be linked to chronic stress. And
Okay.
so if you look at like Alzheimer dementia rates, it's not always due to stress, but stress is a factor there. If you look at immune diseases and things that have come up and become more noticeable and been diagnosed more frequently, a
Mm.
lot of that has to do with like chronic stress. And that's been going on, I would say, for a long time.
Okay. All right. So we've talked about some movement. We've talked about breathing. What else?
Okay, my other favorite, especially for families, is a 20-second hug. So there was this study called, I think it was called the family or the partner contact study, and they looked at stress hormones and like heart rate and blood pressure with and timed it with a
Mhm.
hug with somebody that you have affection towards that you
Mhm.
trust. And they found that in 20 seconds, hormone levels changed, blood pressure decreased, heart rate decreased. And I have to say, like, my husband now is really good at noticing, like, when I need that 20 second,
Mhm.
he will count it out for me. So it's something you can teach your loved ones.
Yeah.
I already love hugging my kids, and now I know there's a benefit, like, even more benefit to it than it just feels good. This is good for my stress level too.
I've started this with all of my kids as they were younger. And now that they are teenagers and taller than me, my son specifically, who's 14, will be like, all right, mom, I'm counting. And he's seriously, can we stop? I'm like, no, you're going to love this 20 seconds. But we have always had a agreement almost where it's an unspoken agreement, but I don't stop the hug. I wait for them to. And
Mm.
so then whenever they're ready, then they'll let go and they move across. But we do joke about it now. I'm like, hold on, you just got to hang on 20 seconds, guys.
I joke the same thing with my girls. It's you got to give me more.
Yeah.
I need more than 10 seconds. We need 20 seconds. And they're like, "Come on, mom." I'm like, "No, this is good for you too."
You can do it. You can do it. I love it. And I actually think the laughter throughout is probably a really important part of it, though I don't think that's in the research study, but we are joking the entire time that's happening with my son specifically. My daughter actually will lean in a little bit more. She's in for it, but and my youngest son, he's 9, so he still fits. I'm not reaching up to hug him quite yet, but he'll hang on for a little bit longer too.
And laughter is shown in the research to reduce our stress levels as well. And like I would say a couple years ago, I noticed this. I went to a comedy show for the first time, and it had been like a crazy week. I was pretty stressed out. And as the show went on and I relaxed, I felt my shoulders drop. I
Yeah.
felt like the busy brain shut off. And I really got into it, and it felt so good afterwards.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I read the research and I was like, oh, that was really good. Because when we're in fight or flight, we can't really laugh and let go because
Yeah.
that allows the threat in. By laughing, by engaging in something that's humorous, we're letting go of that fight or flight response.
Yeah. So you did mention a little bit earlier, and I meant to stop you and forgot. So you were talking about the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. So for the listeners that are like, wait, what are these words? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes, so we have two kind of sides to our nervous system. And so the sympathetic nervous system is that fight or flight, the system that puts us on alert to protect ourselves. And what I'll say is like we see this as a negative, but it's actually a positive in the short
Right.
term to allow us to react quickly to protect ourselves. It's the problem is when it's left on chronically, which is what we've been talking about today. And then on the flip side, we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which allows our body to rest and relax and recover from the stressors of the day. And so that by doing some of these techniques we've talked about today, we're like targeting that parasympathetic nervous system and turning it on so that we can allow the body to rest and recover and go back into its normal state.
Normal state. So do people, can they recognize if a parasympathetic system is being turned on, or is this very person to person?
That is a great question. So, actually, when we are doing anything that is helping our body relax, if you yawn, swallow, or sigh, that is like an involuntary response, which tells you that you've activated your parasympathetic nervous system, which I think is really cool because when I learned that, and then I started to notice it, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I just yawned and I didn't know why initially, but then when I thought
Yeah.
about it, I was like, oh, I was doing my deep breathing, or I was starting to feel relaxed after my day, and I
Hmm.
could start to feel that shift. And
Interesting.
I think the important part is we're not always aware of what's going on internally because we're
Mm.
desensitized to it. We're like stuck in the to-do list, go to the next
Right.
thing. So when you start to tap into how is my body actually feeling right now, and you start to notice what it feels like when you're in a stress response and what it feels like when you take action to turn it off, then you start to notice those patterns and those times when it's, oh, I'm letting go now. This
Right.
feels different.
Huh. Huh. I've I'm really interested in this yawning thing because I'm trying to think back through my day, and because that is the inverse of hiccuping. This is coming back to me now from
Hmm.
before. Hiccuping as a sign of stress or no?
I am not entirely sure,
Okay.
but I have heard something about that, but I don't remember exactly the details of it. Yeah, I'm
Fascinating.
gonna have to go look that one
I
up.
know. Anyone who's listening, let us know about
Yeah.
hiccuping. Awesome. Katie, this has been absolutely fantastic. Tell people now, so you are an OT, but also a health coach. Like, how does this all go together? What are you doing now?
Yeah, so I provide one-on-one coaching services mostly to moms and parents to help them manage the day-to-day, the
Mhm.
overload that have all felt, the stress, and how do we take care of ourselves so that we can be our best selves, so we can have that energy and that passion. And I love being able to support fellow moms and parents. It's such a passion of mine. When I was able to start taking better care of myself and felt that shift, I was like, oh, I need others to feel this too, because it
Right,
is so empowering when you feel whole again, when you feel like, oh, yeah, I can be present with my
right.
family. I can be present in these things that I'm doing. Yeah.
I love that. So, what does that look like when you're supporting a parent? What do they do?
Yeah, so we get real deep into, I typically work with people for like at least 3 months, typically
Mhm.
6 months, and we meet a couple times a month and we dive really deep into like, why do you want to feel different? What is
Mhm.
your purpose? What goals do you want to achieve in our time together? And then it's a lot of support and accountability to achieve those goals. I feel my belief system, and I think this is also the coaching philosophy, is most people know what they want, or we can
Mhm.
dig that out of them. But getting there is really hard. It's hard to do that on your own, on an
Mhm.
island. So having the support of someone to say, is this what's going to serve you right now? Is this what's going to get you to that end goal? What supports do you need? What structure do we need to set up? What habits do we need to form to get to that end goal and
Mhm.
see that transformation over those months? And it's a lot of small shifts. There's no
Yeah.
overnight magic wand. It's small shifts over several months to see this big transformation.
Beautiful. So how will people find you?
Yeah, so my website is katiecooperwellness.com, and I'm also on Instagram at the same handle. So it's pretty easy to find me out there. And I have a freebie for your audience as
Yeah.
well that has more ways to calm their nervous system. So we can link that in the show notes
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing with us these some tricks for our day. And then also sounds like more. So we'll make sure that is for sure linked to the show notes.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. It's so great to chat with you.
If you listen to this episode thinking, well, this all sounds great, but I need help actually putting it into practice, I've got you. I created a free homeschool day planning guide just for you. It includes a printable daily rhythm template, checklist for multi-age planning, and my favorite prompts for encouraging a growth mindset and presuming competence at home. It's totally free, and it's designed to take the stress out of structuring your day without chaining you to a very rigid schedule. So download it at homeschoolot.com/shop or click the link in the show notes. Let's get you organized, confident, and connected starting today. Remember, homeschooling is not alone schooling because the OT is in.